challenges throughout his career, I would still say to you that the greatest challenge of his career was when they beat Oklahoma City for the title that year, because it was fresh off of them losing in the finals to the Dallas Mavericks and the pressure that mounted on his shoulders. I'm telling you, as a person that covers the sport, it was nothing like it. I mean, we were all sitting there looking, and it was like, oh, you better get it done now. This is it right here. Legacy, everything. Even though he had a career, obviously, that was still, had more than a decade of, almost a decade of wheels left on it and all of this other stuff. The fact that they had assembled and the fact that he had said not one, not two, not three, not four, five, six, seven, and then they lost to the Dallas Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki, who they were favored to beat. And in the same breath, it was Dirk Nowitzki, but there were times in the fourth quarter where Jason Terry was guarding you, and you did not abuse that man, even though I love the Jet. You did not abuse that man. This LeBron James we're talking about. The heat that was on him, I'll never forget this, Key, JJ, following year, they down 3-2, and they got to go to Boston. Boston's got him up, got him down 3-2. Paul Pierce, KG, and the crew looking to close the deal, and we all descended on Boston. It was like, yo, this is it. This is it right here. You get bounced out from this. Ain't no coming back from this. And that brother dropped 45 and 15. When they show that photo of him looking like he a man possessed, for crying out loud, he was just in a different zone. It's because he knew at that moment in time, in my opinion, just covering sports, there comes a moment for a lot, not all, but for a lot of athletes where winning will propel you to new heights, losing will sink you. You just ain't coming back from it. And that's what it looked like for LeBron at that particular moment. And I've always viewed that as his toughest challenge, because to me, it was like if he didn't overcome that, I don't think he might have ever learned to become a champion.
Interesting.
See, for me, what I'm listening to him say right there is, it is his toughest challenge because of everything that Stephen A. said. He got over. He won those championships.
Right.
So I'm through that now. Now I done went out there. I done asked for Anthony Davis to come. We won one. Last year we didn't even make it. We got bounced. But now I done went out and got Westbrook. I done brought the old band together in Dwight Howard. Now I'm bringing in Rondo. I got Ariza coming when he's back healthy. So I got all the old goods coming back. But I also recognize and I realize that we are not where we want to be. And it's going to be hard to get there. It's going to be challenging to get there. And everybody was doubting me based on last year coming into the season. Even though I assembled all these pieces and put things together,
that's the part
people
that's
are
hard
starting
for me.
to
There's so
doubt
many
him.
stars on that team to say this is the most challenging, and you've got AD and
but
Russ
you got
on your
it's challenging,
squad.
but it's challenging
like
because you got to put it together. You got to put it together, and it's not together yet. That's what he's talking about.
JJ, where are you?
The greatest challenge of LeBron James' career was bringing a championship to Cleveland. He had 5 opportunities to do that. That 07 team was completely overmatched. They were a little bit early. They didn't have the talent. All right. You look at 2014, he plays the Warriors, or 2015 rather, he plays the Warriors. Kyrie hurts himself. 16, they're down 3-1. That's the greatest challenge. LeBron has said it himself. He said it himself. It's the best championship. He thinks it's the best championship in history. That's arguable. But to him, that is his greatest challenge. And if you look at all the teams that he brought to the finals with Cleveland, other than 15 and 16, those teams were overmatched. This team right now with the Lakers has 2 future Hall of Famers on the team. This is not the greatest challenge of his career.
But why would he say it?
He didn't say it. Don't put words in his mouth.
But I'm just reading what he said.
It's right up there with the greatest challenge.
Yeah,
but
it's right up there with.
He did. That's how you didn't take it that way.
No, I didn't take it that way.
So
Not at all.
don't mince his words through your rose-colored glasses.
No, I think what JJ is saying, as well as Stephen A., it is a challenge for him. But when you look at it, they're not playing good basketball. What are they, 500 right now?
500,
yeah, 500.
They're not playing good basketball.
7th in the West.
When is that going to happen? That is a challenge. I don't care how great the players are that's around him. They're not playing good. They're not playing good, Stephen A.
We talked about this off air a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we said, what is their ceiling in the regular season? And you guys felt that it was maybe a 3 seed, maybe a 4
Yeah,
seed.
yeah.
Well,
And I said they look like they're headed for the play-in game. Now, the way the Big Three have played the last 3 games, there's certainly an opportunity to move up in the standings.
Right.
But this is not a team that's going to be a top 3 seed in the West.
The
Let me
Lakers and
be
the Bucks
good.
family ain't spending whatever the payroll is right now to be the 7th seed or
That's
the
right.
play-in
They
game.
ain't
That's why
they
it's a
ain't trying to have-
challenge.
they ain't trying to
But
have that.
that's currently what it is.
But let me break this down. First of all, I would warn you to be careful about what you say about JJ Redick because he got this podcast blowing up, and then he leaves and go talks about us. You understand what I'm saying?
Is that what you do,
we have
man?
to be careful. I got to show up and invade the podcast
Stephen
so I
A.
can correct
Is he
him
being
for the error.
sensitive?
You know what I'm saying?
Is
I'll get him
Stephen
later.
A.
I'm gonna get him
being
later. I'm gonna get him later. I'm gonna get him later. It's no worry.
What did I say on the podcast? I said you were one of, if not the most talented person on TV.
I appreciate
Period.
that.
It was very flattering. I didn't talk.
I appreciate the
going
love,
behind your
and I
back.
think you're one of the greatest shooters in NBA history. Ain't nothing but love here. But I remember I heard that interview with Mikal Bridges. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You're not getting away with that. But let me get
Rabbit ears
back.
over
Let me
here.
get back to my point. That's right. I got rabbit
I
ears.
know.
Tell him. I watch
He
everything.
watches everything.
Here's the thing. You see, you got to be careful what you say about it because he's going to quote you now. But here's the deal. When you talk about LeBron James and that challenge, it's just a personal preference. I'm going to always hold that suspension of Draymond Green against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, only from the not his fault, of course. I'm talking about the league giving him that stimulus package, knowing that he was a guy to get bounced out in 5 back at the Oracle.
But you got to be fair, though, Stephen A., because Kyrie got hurt.
No. This is not the finals.
This isn't.
No, I'm talking. This is.
Oh, you talking about the kick game.
When they suspended Draymond and then Bogut and Iguodala got hurt the game, Draymond clearly in a position where he's willing to preserve himself for the postseason now, more so than ever before. I think it's one of those situations where his basketball IQ, his ability to make and finish plays, his strength, his size, his girth, his basketball know-how, plus a perimeter shot that's not awful, it's decent. I think the combination of all of those things with Anthony Davis and the rest of the crew, with Carmelo playing the way that he's been playing thus far, even though I don't think that'll last, I still believe in Carmelo Anthony. In the end, I think it's going to take a sniper-like squad, like the Golden State Warriors, to take out the Los Angeles Lakers.
JJ, can I ask you a question? And Keyshawn, we'll get to you because I know you're going to be very defensive, all things LA in a moment. So, JJ, is it fair to say that father time is catching up to LeBron James?
To me, it's the first time in my life, and I've known LeBron since he was 15 years old, where LeBron looks human. He looks human. He had a core injury a couple seasons ago. Last season, he had an ankle injury. He comes out and says, I don't know if I'll ever be 100% again after that. Then another core injury to start. The way he started this season honestly reminds me a little bit of like 2018 with the Cavs, where he kind of cruised through the regular season in order to sort of save himself for the playoffs. If we look at this Lakers roster, though, it's a clunky fit. It's a clunky fit with their big three. They need more shooting on the floor. Who knows if Melo's hot shooting is sustainable at this point? They definitely need at least two other great shooters.
Do you think bringing in Westbrook was the right move?
They gave up a lot for Westbrook, but some of that was fit. I don't think Kyle Kuzma was a great fit there. I don't think Montrezl Harrell was a great fit there. Those guys are playing great in Washington. They gave up a lot. What they didn't get back was any shooting, and that's what they need. They need more shooting.
Well, the one thing I would say before Keyshawn chimes in here is that is a reflection on Frank Vogel, who I like personally. But I will tell you this: you don't use Montrezl Harrell at all during the playoff series against the Phoenix Suns. You don't use him at all. Kyle Kuzma didn't necessarily develop under you. You know what? Looking at them and the way they're playing in Washington right now, in the nation's capital, if they keep this up and the Lakers continue to struggle, which I don't think will happen, on the Lakers side anyway, you're going to be looking at Frank Vogel and being like, what the hell's going on here?
6-5 ain't a struggle, I don't think, when you don't have LeBron James 10 games into the 11 games into the season, right? I know we talked about Westbrook. Yes, that is a problem in terms of shooting. But can Westbrook start the game, give him 7 minutes, come and be the second unit guy that does what he did a couple games ago, which is score at a high volume? I mean, we're not asking Carmelo Anthony to score 29 points a night. So if he can give us half of that, I think we would take that and be happy with it.
Oh, he'll
right?
give you half of that.
If you can get half of that, you can get half of that. I think you take that and you run to the hills with it. LeBron James, father time may be catching up slowly, but it's got a long ways to go, JJ.
I'm never going to discredit
I didn't say you was discrediting
LeBron.
He said human.
But he looks human.
Yeah.
He looks human.
Yeah, in the early stages. What about late in the year, second half of the season, all-star, if we was having this conversation and you said to me, he looks human, when they're getting ready to go into the into the playoffs, now I'm a little more worried. The biggest problem for me is, can we keep AD healthy?
I've told y'all.
Can we keep AD healthy?
I've told y'all all year long. I said, look.
10 games in, by the way.
Well, I'm just talking about preseason once the minute the mental trade was made. I've said it. It's going to come down to Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
I know that with Anthony Davis, you're looking at health.
Health.
With LeBron, you're looking at health. With Russell Westbrook, you're looking at how you play. Last night, had a triple-double. 5 turnovers in the fourth quarter. 5. And some of them were pivotal ones. You're going to look at him, and if you're the opposition, you're going to challenge him to make the right play at key pivotal moments. Now, with LeBron there, that's the ultimate cover, because we all know how LeBron usually is going to make the right plays. But the bottom line is that you're going to look at them, and you're going to find a way to put Russell Westbrook in a position where he's the one that has to come through for you in a pivotal moment. And the question is, can he do that in terms of his decision-making and his shot-making ability?
Well, I would think in the fourth quarter he would defer, obviously, to LeBron, especially like bringing the ball up the court, spacing it out. Because as you said, LeBron is not a deadly shooter, but he does shoot the ball pretty well now. So that's your guy. In terms of Westbrook doing what he's doing, Stephen A. and JJ, he's a second unit guy for me. Giving LeBron rest, he comes in there and he gives us that increase in scoring.
Sure, he loves being called a second union guy.
Hey,
okay, so JJ says LeBron looks human for the first time. The fit's a little clunky. You're a little concerned about Westbrook. You're a little concerned about AD's health. I will ask you, Mr. Laker, if you were a betting man, how far is your squad going?
Probably to the championship.
Yeah, probably.
I know they're going to be there.
I forgot who I was asking.
Yeah. And I'm believing in LeBron and AD to stay healthy to get us over the hump.
What I would say is it should be who JJ mentioned. It should be Utah.
Okay.
I don't have faith in anyone in Utah outside of Donovan Mitchell. Somehow, some way, they just let me down. Engel and Gobert and those guys. They just let me down. Okay, they just let me down. And I'm just a believer in the Golden State Warriors. I'm just talking about that. I just think that when you can
think to escalate it afterwards. Isaiah Stewart, after initially being fairly reserved in his reaction, started to taste his own blood. And we all know what that's like. He went into a fit of rage. He escalated the situation. He probably did deserve more games than LeBron, but I think 2 games is fair.
Well, for me personally, I disagree. I thought it should have been more. I don't have a problem with it being 2 because I think the kid is a good kid, and he's only 20 years of age, and people make mistakes. And if you're looking at it through that lens, I have no issue with it. But the NBA is a business, and you have folks that are patronizing your product. And the reality of the situation is that we all have to pay attention. We have to live in the real world and understand how the NBA is looking at it and what kind of detrimental effect they believe something like that being tolerated could potentially have on them. So I'm going to go into detail. We saw as LeBron clearly instigated it. He was wrong. And I have no problem if LeBron had gotten a couple of games. If he had gotten a couple of game suspensions instead of just 1, it wouldn't have bothered me in the slightest. I don't think that he intended for that to happen, meaning for the guy to be bleeding. And I think you saw instantly what his reaction is. Like, I really messed up. My bad, the whole bit. So I think you saw LeBron doing that. And then we hear that he tried to reach out and call him thereafter. Neither here nor there. Isaiah Stewart had to be restrained. Can you count the amount of people he had to be restrained by? Can you count the amount of people?
About 7 or 8. About 7 or 8.
I think it was more than that. Because you're talking about his teammates.
But did he
and
throw a punch?
Staff.
Did he throw a punch?
Well, you could. No, he did not.
He did not leave the court in a timely manner.
Hold on, Jay. No.
But he
no,
didn't
Jay,
throw a punch.
No,
You're
Jay,
talking
stop.
about a product.
Jay, stop.
He did not throw a punch.
Stop, Jay. He didn't throw a punch. He ran over a few people.
He ran over assistant coaches and security guards.
Right.
It wasn't like he was running over guys from the Lakers.
No, the point is that Jay Williams tried to make that same point. No. What if an assistant coach, what if one of your own assistant coaches, who's probably in his 40s or 50s, what if they had gotten hurt when they went flying and fell to the floor?
Right.
Would we be saying, well, that was your teammate, that wasn't the opponent? We wouldn't be saying that. The fact of the matter is you have to restrain yourself, because when you don't restrain yourself, and you look that out of control, where ultimately arena security and law enforcement officials got to get involved because you're racing to the back to try to confront LeBron James after you bulldozed over numerous people in the process. This is the part that's hard about this conversation, because I'm not trying to point the finger at Isaiah Stewart like he's some bad guy.
Clearly not. Clearly not.
Clearly not. I'm not saying that about it. What I'm saying is, from an optics perspective, if you are the league, it matters how your product.
What's an appropriate punishment?
I thought if it were me,
yeah,
I'd have suspended him for 5 games. I'd suspend him for 5 games without blinking. And I would have explained to him, and I would have went old Commissioner, God rest his soul, Commissioner Stern route. I would have called him up to the league office, and I would have said, I want you to understand that I don't believe you're a bad person. I don't believe this is something that you're known for. But you need to understand that as a professional athlete representing our brand, you can't look like that and think that that is going to be a good reflection on our league. Elbows happen. People have bled before. Hell, punches have been thrown before. But you don't see something like that often.
But Stephen A., though.
And that's what I'm saying.
Well, it was intentional. Keyshawn, I want you to get in here. It was intentional, and he is 20 years old. Go ahead, Keyshawn.
Which part was intentional, Molly?
LeBron elbowing. He didn't mean to give him no, wait, hold on. Let me finish this thought. He didn't mean to give him a bloody face and all that, right? Right? But the elbow didn't just magically go up in the air.
No, there's no question that whatever frustration was there with LeBron at some point in time, he took it out on Isaiah Stewart because they were locked at arms, standing there underneath the basket, and he basically said, get you know what, off of me, and his head happened to hit a closed fist. Therefore, there was a gash that was put into Isaiah's face. He did not do it intentionally. LeBron deserved to be suspended. Isaiah, based on, like Stephen A. said, running out there, being looked at as out of control, escalating the situation, because you never know how that thing might turn. You just don't know. And as you know, JJ, the league is a brand. They want to protect that logo. They don't want to have the same sort of things that happen in fights with a bunch of people around. All of a sudden, there's some mayhem. And 2 games is enough, Stephen A. You don't need more than 2 games. He's young.
I don't have a problem with the 2. I'm saying if it were me, it would have been 5. But I'm not opposed to the 2. I'm not opposed to the 2.
JJ, why were you shaking your head when Keyshawn was just talking?
Well, here's my issue with giving him a 5-game suspension. The guy hasn't done anything wrong in his career. This is his first thing. He's clearly mad.
Yeah.
He's bleeding all over the court.
Yes.
No one was hurt. And to Stephen A.'s point earlier, I'm sure the league is going to have a long conversation with him. I'm sure the front office of Detroit is going to have a long conversation with him. I'm sure he will learn a lesson from this 2-game suspension. 5 seems excessive. That's all I'm saying.
Let me ask you this, though, JJ and Stephen A. Because some people tried to convince me that LeBron got off lightly because it's LeBron James. If it wasn't LeBron James and it was somebody else, the 9th man on the team, they would have had a harsher penalty. Do y'all believe that? Because I don't.
No, I don't.
I don't believe it either. I don't believe it. Again, he goes back to LeBron didn't further escalate the situation.
Exactly.
He realized as soon as he hit him in the face, he realized, oh, I swung. I didn't mean to hit him there, but I swung.
In the league, he's never been feared. LeBron is not somebody that instills fear in you. Of course, you got a game plan for him, and you know that his Herculean talents and what have you and what he brings to the table, he's impossible to stop. He's one of the top 2-3 players in the history of basketball. You know all of those things. But a lot of times when we think about MJ, for example, and obviously he's the one person that draws those comparisons, what ultimately comes up short is the level of fear that was instilled in you. You didn't mess with MJ. You didn't come at MJ like that. You didn't do stuff like that. People, and I'm not talking about Isaiah Stewart, I'm just talking about period in terms of opponents and how they come at you. You believe that you wondered what you was going to do about this. With LeBron, you believe you can take him. You believe he can be had, whether it's because of the teammates around him, the system he's playing in, the people that, whatever skill set you bring to the table, et cetera, et cetera. You just view him differently. And throughout the years in covering the league, those are all the things that I've consistently heard. Now, obviously, he would refute that. There's players that would refute that who have been supportive of him. Rich Paul and Maverick Carter definitely would refute that because I've spoken to them about it in the past. But again, he is profoundly respected. This is not an issue about respect for LeBron. I'm talking fear factor. Fear factor. That's just not something that has ever been associated with him.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Go ahead, man.
There's a lot to unpack there.
That's why you're here.
First of all, two of the guys you brought up in that conversation,
Yes.
Kobe,
Yeah.
got two-pieced by Chris Childs.
Yes, it's Chris Childs.
Michael Jordan got the hell beat out of him for years by the Detroit Pistons. So they challenged him physically. To say that LeBron, who's won 4 championships,
Yep.
multiple league MVPs, made the finals 8 straight years,
Right.
to say he's not feared by players?
Not feared.
I don't know whether to believe that you believe what you're saying.
I do believe
that's
what you said.
that's crazy.
Well, it's not crazy. It's not.
That's crazy.
It's not crazy, and you know better. You know better. 'Cause you've been in the. You've
But
been
hold on.
in
But
the, you know,
when has there been a situation? If you're talking physical confrontation,
No, I'm not. Listen.
physical confrontation.
Listen. Well,
If that's what you're referring to,
I'm not- I'm just-
nobody's
I'm-
ever
I'm-
challenged LeBron like that. Why would they?
Nobody could challenge him. I
Exactly.
forgot who it was, the center that played for the Chicago Bulls when he shoved LeBron to the ground, pushed him to the floor when he was in Miami. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying to you is this: if you watch the game, which you do, and you
I
reported
played the game, but I played the game,
I know
Stephen A.
that's
And I
right.
played against LeBron in the playoffs.
Okay.
And I've played against LeBron. I played against LeBron for 15 years.
You fear what he can do. Listen, you fear what he can do to you on the basketball court because nobody could ever question the greatness of LeBron James. But what I am trying to say to you is that you look at him, there's certain things with MJ in the era that he was in. I've spoken to Isaiah, I've spoken to Dr. J, I've spoken to Kareem, I've spoken to Magic, I've spoken to other folks. There's a culture that existed in the 80s, into the 90s, into the 2000s, or what have you. When you look at LeBron and you compare him to some of the preeminent superstars that have played this game, when it comes to fear, that's one of the differences.
Do you mean because LeBron's more accessible, like in terms of the personality, and where MJ wasn't like one of the buddy guys?
That could have a lot.
Kobe?
That could have a lot to do with it. What I'm saying is, we're talking about the greatest player who ever played the game, which I believe to be Michael Jordan. And a lot of times, when you delineate the difference between the two, whether it's Michael Jordan or it's LeBron James, they're talking about a fear factor. There's just certain things you knew that you wasn't going to do to MJ. You could come to MJ on the court. But the things that people have done, the way that they've talked about LeBron James, the way that they've come behind him in the media, behind his back and stuff like that, you hear stuff 30 years later about MJ. A lot of times you didn't hear that kind of stuff going on because there was a level of respect and fear that LeBron, I shouldn't say respect because LeBron has always been respected. But yes.
Stephen A.
Yes.
Hold on a second. LeBron has grown up in a completely different world that existed in the 80s and 90s. There was no First Take in the 90s. Could you imagine in the New York Knicks series, LeBron or MJ going to Atlantic City the day before the game and coming home at 2 a.m.? Social media, this show, it's all you would talk about for days.
No.
For days.
No.
Yes, it would be.
No, not on this show. Not on this show. Because as far as I'm concerned, listen, let me tell you what I said back then, because I'm glad you brought that up. Michael Jordan went out and gambled, right? And Michael Jordan, hypothetically, I guess it was in the millions or whatever, he might have lost. My response was, you have any idea how much money Michael Jordan was worth? What do you care? Mind your business.
But what does this have to do with fear?
No, I'm just bringing you brought up Atlantic City. I'm saying the point that I'm trying to make.
The reason people talk about LeBron though is because he lives in a 24/7 news.
They would have talked about anybody,
and
it would have been just as bad, if not worse, for MJ, no doubt about it. But I'm talking to you about respect and fear. There's no question. We ain't talking about respect for LeBron.
And I'm disagreeing with you completely.
And so you're saying,
there's no credence to Stephen A's argument, JJ.
So you're saying that the people like that, the fear that Michael Jordan instilled in people, that's what LeBron did?
Yes.
Okay.
In a different way. I mean, you're comparing two different things. To say that his peers don't fear him, opposing coaches don't fear him.
Listen.
You think people want to go into a playoff series against LeBron?
No, I'm not talking about basketball. I'm not talking about basketball. On the court, I'm acknowledging his greatness. What I'm saying to you, the way people talk about him, the way they look to attack him, and I'm talking about contemporaries in the National Basketball Association. I'm not talking about his performance on the court. That's not what I'm saying. And by the way,
who's attacking LeBron? Who's attacking
What do you mean?
LeBron?
I'm talking about over the years, people that have come at him. Come on, JJ. I got to go to my archive.